Hi friend, Scott Brookins. If I asked you the question, if you're hungry enough, just what would you say? How would you feel that in? If you're hungry enough, just see in our Western culture or North America, we'd probably fill that in with, just eat bread, have some peanut butter, macaroni and cheese, eat beans and rice. Um, but I want to tell you a story and where that question comes from. Um, our ministry, we've been working in Uganda, Africa since 2004, and God has expanded that over the years. And now our whole ministry is just focused on the work in Uganda. And one of those projects, out of the four or five that we do down there in Uganda, is to support women and children. Now, most of these women have their husbands have died, or they've been abandoned. And the ones that have been abandoned in the children, typically these women became Christians and their husbands weren't. And so then they kicked them out of the house. In Uganda, you can legally have two wives. And so many of these guys just left. They took off. They took another wife. In most cases, they kicked the woman and her kids out of the house, and they're on their own. And these women usually don't have anyone to help them. When you're married in that culture, typically the woman becomes a kind of property of the man and his family. And so then if the husband gets rid of them or the husband dies, then typically there's no one to take care of them, no in-laws, no parents left or family that could even help support. And God's put it on our hearts to support as many of these women and their kids as we can, help them buy food each month, pay tuition for their kids in school, buy medicine, pay the rent. And each time we go to visit Uganda and preach and do all sorts of work there, we get the privilege of hearing how God has changed these women's lives and their kids. But many of them are very hard to hear of what they've gone through and struggled through. And the question I asked at the beginning came from a visit a couple years ago. We were hearing testimonies from many women who have been abandoned or their husbands had died, and how God had used Laura and I to change their lives. And it wasn't us, it's the support we get from many people and churches that then we send as God leads us. But this lady, her husband had died. A young woman had, I think, 3 or 4 children, and one of those was a baby. And she had no jobs, no means of support, and she was really terrified of how she was going to take care of her kids. And she shared with us how it got to a point where her in-laws and the family there told her this this statement, is that if you're hungry enough, just eat the baby. Can you imagine? But that was reality to her. That's what was told her to do. If you're hungry enough, just. And thankfully she didn't. Thankfully, Pastor Benjamin and Sister Grace came into their lives, and we were able to come into her life and radically change it with some simple support. So, this story is it's hard to share, but I want to encourage you. There's a lot of problems in our world. There's a lot of people in our country, in our neighborhoods, and around the world that need help. We can't help them all. But what difference can you and I make in one life each day? So today, who can you make a difference in their lives? Maybe it's smiling at somebody as you walk down the street or you go into the store. Give them a smile, say, "Hello, how you doing?" They might look at you kind of weird, like, "Why are you smiling at me?" But others, you may change their day. Or maybe you can hold the door for a woman as they go into a store, if you're a guy. Or maybe you can feed somebody a meal, or buy somebody a hamburger, or just encourage someone or share the gospel with them as a Christian. So I want you to really take this question on heart. If I gave you that statement, if you're hungry enough, just, and how would you fill in that blank? Go impact somebody's day. Have an amazing day. Inspire others to do the same. God bless.